mentioned in my last favourites video that I was thinking of doing a gift guide, so today what I'm going to be doing is a gift guide, but it's just going to be for art related stuff. I don't really have a ton of ideas when it comes to giving things away for makeup and skincare and stuff like that, so this video is just going to be on art stuff, and it's a little bit of a favourites video too, because this is stuff that I would recommend to anybody. If they're starting art, if they've been doing art for years, it doesn't matter. I think they would at least like some of these, especially the books. So if you're trying to get something for someone for Christmas, doesn't matter if they're a boy, girl, doesn't matter, this stuff should interest them, so hopefully this will help. I'm going to start off with books because that's the way I want to do it. And the first thing I'm going to start off with is something that I mentioned in my last favourites, and that's this book, and it's called Anatomy for the Artist. And it's fantastic. You will not find a better book on anatomy, and especially for someone when they're first drawing and they're trying to understand the way the face works, muscles, bones, all that kind of stuff, which is really important because sometimes you're looking at a drawing, and especially when you're starting out, you can get very frustrated because you know there's something wrong, but you can't place what it is. And if you've got something like this, it's going to help you be able to look at it and then you can go, ah, that's where I've gone wrong, and it really helps you visualize in your head what you need to do. And as an artist, that's really important. If you can't get that image in your head, it's extremely hard to get the right kind of image onto the paper. So if someone's starting out in art, or if they've already been doing it for years, get this book. It is so good. And on the topic, another book that I would absolutely recommend, and I've had this one for a few years. I got this one in the works along with quite a few other really great art books. But these are the two books that I would recommend to anybody, along with one of the James Gurney books, which I will show you in a minute. And there is this one, and it's the Collins Complete Artist Manual. And while the anatomy book focuses on anatomy, this one focuses on technique, tools, so it will tell you everything about any tool you could possibly use in art. It tells you the names of all the different brushes, how they're made, different techniques to prime papers. So all the technical stuff that they don't really teach people in art schools, and it just drives me mad because before I did my graphic design degree, I went to so many art classes and they never teach you the basic stuffs. It drove me mad because I would go to art classes and you'd get idiots, certifiable idiots, saying things like, there's no such thing as technique, or, oh, it's okay to break the rules. You can't break the rules if you don't know what the rules are in the first place. So yeah, sorry, I'm going to rant about that, but I could do a long video about useless art teachers. Anyway, back on this book. If you want a book that just covers all the basic little things, like how to stretch and prime papers, watercolours, what to avoid, what all the different technical terms are, names of all the different brushes, this will teach you all of that, and it's a really, really good book to have if you're starting out. I think even if you've been doing art for years, there's almost definitely something you're going to find out in here that you didn't know already. These two books are from James Gurney, and he's the artist who did the Dinotopia series, and if you haven't seen the Dinotopia series, I really suggest you get your hands on those, especially on Amazon. They're really cheap, they're kind of disgustingly cheap. I felt a bit bad when I was buying them because I bought one of the books for something like £3. Oh my gosh, and the paintings in this book are so beautiful and give you so many ideas. It just felt a little bit like theft in a way. It's a real bargain. If you're looking for these books, have a look on Amazon. You can snap them up for dirt prices, it's ridiculous. But anyway, two books that I would really, really, really recommend that you get is this one, which is Imaginative Realism, and then the second book called Colour and Light. As the name suggests, it covers all those different topics, and this one's really good if you're kind of struggling with the ideas aspect of it, and this one covers a little bit more the technical ways from how to get the ideas from your head onto the paper and get them looking as realistic as possible. So these are two books that I would absolutely recommend you add to your collection. The next two things I'm going to recommend are for watercolours. Now this one is a palette, but it's not a plastic palette. I hate plastic palettes because I can be quite clumsy, and especially when I'm painting I like to have all my artwork around me, and it's so easy to knock things. And what I don't like about plastic palettes, apart from the feel of them, I hate the feel of plastic, is that they get knocked over very easily and there's no weight to them. But what I like about ceramic palettes is that they're heavy, so it's a lot harder to knock them over and to spill them, and I just prefer the feeling of it. I don't like plastic. And you can get tons of different palettes. There's one palette I've got my eye on, which is a massive A6 sized palette, and what it has is all these different square wells, and I haven't got my hands on it yet. I'm going to get my hands on it in the next few months, I think. Because there's a few projects that I'm going to have to start drawing. I'm going to have to start drawing some of the concept art for the second comic book soon, and possibly the third one as well. And then there's a few things that we're going to have to do for Outsider when we pitch it as an animation. So in the next few weeks I'm going to have to start drawing and painting like crazy, so I'm going to get myself one of those palettes just to kind of treat myself. Now it's a blatant excuse and I'm okay with that. And then with that, what I normally paint with, and you're going to have to excuse how really messy this looks, but I was using it yesterday and I still haven't cleaned it, is this watercolour well. Now I have used other watercolours in the past which have a much bigger selection of colour, but I found that I kept going back to this one just because I like the size of it. It has all the colours that I need, and I really like mixing the colours to get the exact shade that I need. And especially if I have something like the Daisy palette here, I can just have all the primary colours in one place and then I can start watering them down, add other undertones to it. And I just like this palette. For me, this palette is the perfect size, and especially if I'm going somewhere, I can bring it with me. It quite literally fits in my pocket. It's tiny. If you know someone who's really into watercolours or who's trying to get into watercolours, you might want to give this one a try. Next we're going to go on to pencils and all that kind of stuff. I've got quite a few different things that I like to use for this, but I'm going to start with my two most important tools when it comes to drawing or any kind of art. I've always got these two with me. There's two different mechanical pencils that I use. There's this one, which is the Techniclick C, and this is a 0.5 lead size. This is the one that I use for a very, very long time, and it is really good. It's really good for doing sketches, portraits, even some of the more detailed stuff. But recently I got another pen which is slightly better. I prefer it for the moment, but I use both of them, and this one is a much smaller size, and I think this one is a 0.3. And what I do like about this one is it's slightly more weighty, and so it sits better in my hand. It also has these little rubber grips which are quite cool. I kind of prefer the feel of it, but the main thing that I really like is the lead size, because the amount of detail I can get with this pen is incredible. And I actually saw this on an artist who I follow who's fantastic, called Stephanie Munlaw. She does these beautiful illustrations, and I saw that she was doing these sketches for her artwork before she painted them, and the lines were so thin. I was like, how does she do that? There's no way she does it with pencil. That is not a pencil line. And then I saw that she was using this pen. I went ahead on Amazon and got my hands on it, and it's incredible. It's just really good. Anyone, it doesn't matter what kind of artist they are, they could even be an architect. I think a lot of architects use this kind of pencil as well, and you can get them in different sizes. This one is the smallest, it's 0.3 millimeters. You can get them in 0.5, 0.8, and there's another size, but I'll have the link to all of that down in the description box. So yeah, these are two pens that I highly recommend for anyone who really appreciates art. Another two pens that I use an awful lot in all my drawings is this pen, and it's the white gel pen. I like using that for the highlights in the eyes. I like using it for outlining the face when I'm done. And then another pen which I really like, sometimes for outlining, but most of the time for what I like to do is I like to do the drawing with a pencil, and then for anything which is meant to be a really pure black, like the irises or the lashes, or I really want to pull attention to a certain part of the portrait, I like to use this one. And it's a Japanese script pen, and I got this one from Muji, I think it is. I haven't found it on Amazon or anything like that, but every time I've had to buy a replacement I had to go to Muji to get it. And the end of this is so fine, and it's got that perfect kind of, I don't know what the word for it. The way that the nib is built is perfect for doing those lashes. It's so easy to just do that beautiful flick. I wish they made an eyeliner version of these, because I would buy it so fast. The next thing, as you can see, this has been used to death. I've already gone through a few of these, and that's a rubber pencil. And normally I don't use rubbers, I don't like them. One of the first things that the only good art teacher I ever had taught me is, whenever you do your sketches, he never let me use a rubber, because it kind of gears your brain into thinking, oh no, I've done something wrong. It doesn't make you work through those mistakes you've done. And one of the worst things someone can do, especially when they're learning to do artwork, is to be afraid of putting a mark on the paper. Sometimes you need to go ahead and mess up so badly, but then not use a rubber, just keep going and work around it, and sometimes you can use that mistake to make something even better. One of the biggest mistakes a lot of artists can do when they're starting is to be afraid and to not have that confidence. It's being, nope, I know what I'm doing, and if I mess up, that's okay, I'm going to learn from it. So what I like to use this rubber for is I like to use it for highlights. So sometimes I'll do all my shading and then I want a very focused area of highlights. I don't like outlining that because it marks the paper, and then sometimes it just picks up the lead in a way that I don't like. So I'll use this for things once I've finished everything and I decide, okay, I want highlighter in the hair there, especially for hair. I love using this for hair, doing all the shading, all the dark tones, the mild tones, and then adding the highlights with this, and then also adding a few more highlights with the white gel pen. It's one of my favourite tricks to do. And on the topic of shading, there's a few different things that I use. I use paintbrushes and paper tortillons. I don't use the paper tortillons as much as I used to. I use makeup brushes a lot, especially this one, which is Royal Majestic 1.8. I bought a few replacements for these recently, and this is probably one of the oldest paintbrushes that I own. I think I must have gotten this when I was about 14, 15, something like that. I've had it for years, and it's a little bit scuffed, but it's actually really good for when you're trying to blend artwork. If you get a brush that is a little bit kind of splaying out in all directions, it's really good for blending, especially for like around the eyes if you're trying to get those really small areas that you need to shade, like the ears, maybe the edges around the nose, the mouth, sometimes the eyes, you know, when you're trying to get that shadow that the lash creates around the corners, and then also the shadow underneath the eyes, all that kind of stuff. I love this paintbrush for blending for drawings. But then for something a little bit bigger, what I like to use is an ordinary C-shaped makeup brush. And makeup brushes are really good for blending pencil, charcoal as well. I haven't been able to do a charcoal drawing in ages because I'm paranoid about getting charcoal on the carpet and losing my deposit, because I would really rather not do that. Actually, while I'm talking about these, a few people were asking, how do you sharpen these? Because sometimes they get blunted and you want a sharp point. Do not, and I repeat, do not use a pencil sharpener, you will destroy them. For something like this, what you need is you need some sandpaper, and you can get them like this, or you can get a regular piece of sandpaper. Do not get sandpaper which is very gritty, you need to get very fine sandpaper. And then what you do is you go like that to sharpen the end, and keep doing that until it's completely sharpened, and that is how you sharpen these. While we're on the topic of shading, another thing that I really like doing is adding highlights. And for highlights, what I do is I use this because they're very, very similar to makeup, which I'm very comfortable with. And I will show you some of the drawings that I have behind me. And they're obviously not in focus, but what I've been using for those is I've been using pan pastels for the highlights on the skin. So on Tia, on Ragana's skin was almost done entirely with pan pastels, which was incredibly fun. I haven't put anything on Knut, but on him especially, you can see where I've put highlights, and on Scad as well. The best set that I've found is actually one which is sold for weathering railway tracks. It's fantastic, it has all the shades you would possibly need. It's got browns with cool undertones, browns with warm undertones, red undertones, and those are the colours that you're going to need, because skin has so many different variations. There's people who've got very dark brown skin but they've got very cold undertones. Then there's people who have very pale skin tones but then they have warm undertones, and you need to be able to replicate that. I'm not a fan of pastels. I actually hate pastels with a passion along with oil paints, but I really like these because it's very similar to the way that you would contour or highlight with makeup, and I think for most girls that's something they're very used to, so it's very easy to take that from applying it to your face to applying it to your artwork. So that's my video all about my favourite and my must-haves for art. I think if you're getting this stuff for anyone, it doesn't matter if they're an amateur, if they're just dabbling in it, if they're a professional, I think there's something that someone would like for this. So hopefully this helps with the Christmas shopping. I hope you liked the video, and I will have a new video for you soon.